Everyone remembers the day when Francisco Solano López rode out of Asunción with a saber that would carve a nation to pieces. He inherited Paraguay in 1862 as the son of a reforming ruler and the steward of a rare South American experiment, a small, prosperous republic shielded by rivers, industry, and a fierce independence. López was proud, impatient, convinced his country must be feared to be safe. When Brazilian gunboats intervened in Uruguay in 1864 and a Brazilian merchant steamer, the Marquês de Olinda, was seized on Paraguay's doorstep, López answered in a voice that would be heard as a declaration of war. That answer stitched together a conspiracy that would bring unspeakable horror to the heart of the continent. The conflict that followed became the War of the Triple Alliance. Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay joined, their coalitions of armies and navies sweeping into an assault that was as military as it was political. Historians still argue about motive, whether the Allies sought only to curb López's aggression, or whether regional and commercial interests, river access, land, and the removal of a strong central state pushed them toward annihilation. Either way, Paraguay found itself pounded from every side. At the siege of Humaitá, the river fortress that guarded Paraguay's lifeline, hunger began its slow work. Blockaded and bombarded, the garrison and civilians scraped edible roots and boiled hides. Disease followed the famine. The granaries emptied. Men who had once been artisans, teachers, and farmers became soldiers by decree, and later, boys. In the winter of 1869, a field called Acosta Nu became a name like a curse. Tens of thousands advanced, many of them not men, but adolescents and children pressed into battle because there were no more grown soldiers to give the nation's last stand. Contemporary accounts tell of cavalry and artillery tearing through ranks of boys with a grim efficiency. Survivors described bodies crumpling in the grass, small hands clutching splintered rifles, the wails of mothers who could do nothing. The scene was cataloged in dispatches, in soldiers' letters home, and in a silence that settled over Paraguay for decades. As the alliance pushed through, López grew more remote and more absolute. He executed perceived traitors, loosed scorched earth orders that emptied villages, and ordered desperate sorties that traded lives for time. The countryside was stripped, houses burned, stock driven off, children evacuated and conscripted. Paramilitary bands, deserters, and occupying troops took what remained. Paraguay's population, already small, was shredded. Scholars estimate that more than half of the country's inhabitants died during the war. Some estimates place the death toll in the hundreds of thousands, and the male population reduced almost to nothing. The exact numbers vary, but the scale of loss is not disputed. When López fell at Cerro Corá on March 1, 1870, the war ended not in triumph, but in a silence populated by ruins. Cities were ghostly, fields lay fallow. The victors imposed terms, occupied towns, and partitioned influence along rivers that had been Paraguay's arteries. Families were broken, children orphaned, whole communities forced into servitude or exile. The reconstruction was slow and bitter under watchful foreign eyes. The conspiracy the war left behind is not a single neatly tied scheme, but a tangle. Diplomatic missteps and pride, regional rivalry, and the hard-handed ambitions of emergent states that saw a weak neighbor as a prize. Some contemporary observers and later historians argue more pointedly, suggesting that commercial and geopolitical forces welcomed Paraguay's destruction to open markets and waterways. Whatever the truth, the calculus treated human beings as instruments. Today, the fields of Acosta Nu bear monuments, and the story is taught. But the memory is not merely a page in a textbook. It is in the way Paraguayans count generations by the gaps war left in the names carved